with us today. Judy has some experiences that are going to educate us about cults. Judy, tell us how it all started.
Hello there. I'm here to talk to you about my experience with the Unification Church, also known as the Moonies. When I was a teenager, I had a difficult home life. I didn't feel like there was any love from my dad. My mom and dad were divorced. I lived with my dad. I didn't really feel like I was receiving love, the love and attention I needed from my dad. So I started searching, and I was searching, for the truth and why I'm here. Well, a friend of mine told me about this group in Berkeley, California, and they said they're really nice people, and you should go and just go have dinner with them. They have a really good dinner, and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And they talk about Jesus, and I'm like, okay, I want to go there and hear all these things. I want to meet these people. So when I finally went to the dinner with her, and they just love bombed on me. They saw that I was a new person, and they just started loving on me and trying to make me feel accepted. But what their ultimate goal was to cause me to get involved with the group and help make them money through fundraising. I was still in high school when I got involved with the group, and I was going to drop out of high school and leave home and live with the group. And my dad begged me not to. He begged me to finish high school. So I finished high school, and 3 days after I graduated from high school, I left home without writing a note to my parents, calling them or anything. I just left. And they didn't know where I was until probably a month later. I called them and told them where I was. I wonder what I put my dad through and my mom. So when I was a teenager, I had a difficult home life. My dad was never around. My parents were divorced. I lived with my dad, and he had a girlfriend that lived with us, and she was abusive to us, not physically but emotionally. I was looking for answers, but at the same time I felt like there was no love at my house, so I was looking for love. And I found this group. A friend of mine had met this group in Berkeley, California, and she said, oh, these people are really nice, and they're really friendly, and they're just really nice people, and it sounded like what I was looking for. So I went, and what they do is they invite people over for dinner, and then what they call love bomb you. So all these people get around you and just tell you how great you are and how nice you are, and I really believe a lot of them are sincere, but they don't really realize, I don't think they realize the ramifications of what they're doing exactly. So of course I'm living in a situation at home where I don't feel like there's any love in the house, and then these people are loving on me. And so naturally I was drawn to them. So I started going, and I actually at one point when I was 16, I wanted to drop out of school and just go and live with these people. And my dad begged me not to do that and to finish school. So as soon as I finished high school, I left home and I joined the Unification Church, also known as the Moonies. So I lived at the house in Berkeley, California, and they had me fundraising to raise money for the organization. And what they had people had us say is anything that would help us to raise money. So they would mostly say, we're a Christian children's group. And so that's usually what I relied on, a Christian children's group. Well, it was not really that. So I did that, and I went around. I'm not a salesperson, so I didn't really enjoy it. I would have rather just stayed at the house with all the other people and just been loved on and not have to do anything. Just be there and be loved on and taken care of. But they had me fundraising because you have to do something to contribute, and because you're living there. And so then they said, well, how would you like to travel around the country fundraising and selling flowers? Well, I love flowers, so I thought, yeah, I'll do it. So I joined a fundraising team, and they take us all around the United States. When I was living at the house in Berkeley, before I went traveling around the United States, they would keep us up really late at night, and then they would make us get up really early in the morning so that we were always in a state of exhaustion, always. And on the weekends, we kind of got a reprieve from that schedule, and they would let us sleep in on Saturday and Sunday, and we'd go to this farm that was outside of San Francisco and stay in this farm on the weekend, and we'd get to sleep in. But we were like, there was like 2 trailers, and there's about 100 people there, so there's 50 girls in one trailer and 50 guys in another trailer, and we all have to share one bathroom. But I ate good. Anyway, so I joined this group, and I traveled all around the country, all around the United States with this group. And what they would do is 7 days a week, we'd go out in the morning, and we'd fundraise all day long. We wouldn't get home till 10, 11, sometimes 12 o'clock at night. And then we'd have to get up at 6 or 7 the next day and start over again. And they would just drop us off at wherever, usually shopping malls or wherever, or businesses, and we'd just go door to door and try to sell whatever product they gave us to sell. But I did meet people that I really genuinely liked in there, other people that were fundraising with me. So I don't want to discount that.
I think it's very important that you don't discount that, because it's vulnerable people that are sincere that get hooked.
Exactly.
They're not going to get people like that.
That's probably why I like them, because they were a lot like me.
Exactly. They can't entrap you if you're sophisticated and worldly wise.
Right.
So of course you like those people.
Right.
They were like you. Hey, I came from a cult.
Right.
And there were a lot of good people there.
Right. Okay. I wanted to go back to the part of living in the trailers, and what I wanted to say is there was a lot of really nice people in the group, but the purpose of the group was not just to be around nice people. The purpose of the group was that they had an agenda, and that they had a philosophy, and they were trying to sell us this philosophy. No, it didn't really make sense. It didn't. Something wasn't right. So what I found out then is that really we were just they were just trying to get people to join so that they could, make money and extend all these people out fundraising and allowing Reverend Moon to just get richer and richer and richer. Right. Yeah. But at the same time, I really felt like there was people that genuinely believed in what they were doing. So, like I said, some of the people were really genuine. They really believed what they were saying. And so I felt like I found my place. I felt like I was like, oh great, I love flowers. I get to sell flowers, and these people are so accepting, and they love me just the way I am. And this is what I've been looking for, and I felt like I found the truth.
How long did it take you to realize that something wasn't right, and what caused that?
In June, I graduated from high school, and so 3 days after my graduation, while my dad was at work, I just left home. By the fall, I was disillusioned with the group. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I have a different path I want to pursue, and I don't think this is the right path for me. Well, what they did is I was at these trailers with all these people around, so they all get around you and they kind of intimidate you. And you're young and you're vulnerable and you don't know how to say no to like a group of 20 people talking you into staying. So I just ended up staying just because to please them. So it was impossible to leave and tell someone. You just had to leave and not tell anybody. Otherwise, they'd get all these people around and they'd, oh, Judy, you need to stay. This is where you belong. This is, they would say all these things. And I'm 17, 18 years old, and I couldn't resist their trying to convince me to stay. They would let me contact my family by phone, but they really discouraged me seeing my family. So they tried to isolate you. Well, they do. They isolate you because their teaching is that Reverend Moon and his wife are our heavenly parents, and that we no longer have any obligation to our earthly parents because these are our new parents, our heavenly parents. So that's what we're taught. So it's kind of like a cycle of abuse in marriage where there's an abusive partner. It's the same thing. They try to isolate you. So they do that. They try to isolate you.
Isolation is very common. It's a tool used in most abusive situations.
So I wanted to go back to how they didn't let us get enough sleep. So they keep us up, you know, singing or reading or studying or something, and then, you know, we'd be exhausted, and we slept on the floor. I mean, we lived in this big, beautiful mansion, but we all slept on the floor, and after 4 or 5 hours of sleep, they came in and woke us up, and, you know, we need more sleep than that. So, and I realized after I left the group that that's a tactic of cults, is that they try to exhaust you. When I started traveling around the United States, it was the same thing. I wasn't getting enough sleep, and so I would literally go into a restaurant or gas station to use the bathroom, and I would fall asleep while I was sitting on the toilet. Sometimes for 3 hours, and because I was so exhausted.
So Judy, when you were out selling flowers, what happened if you didn't meet your quota?
We didn't have a quota, but we were encouraged to make as much money as we could. And so basically, nothing was really said, but you were made to feel ridiculed if you weren't making as much money as everyone else. I mean, it was just these unsaid words that made you feel like you weren't doing your part.
So you were just not as acceptable if you weren't as productive for them financially.
Exactly.
And it was in the air.
It was in the air.
Did they turn away from you in the scouts, or how did that happen?
Well, because they would talk about the other people in the group that made a lot of money. And they would always say, oh, look at so-and-so, she made so much money today, or he made so much money today, and, you know, never say nothing about me, to the point where I actually, before we went fundraising, I started crying, and I actually asked God to help me do good that day so that I would be accepted.
So your acceptance was based on the finances that you brought in.
Right. And so if you weren't making a lot of money, you weren't considered as valuable as somebody else. So your value was based on the money that you could make, and nothing else. As far as I'm concerned, it was based on nothing else.
Was the sleep deprivation connected with the lack of money being made, or was that just a separate type of ceremony that they did to control you more?
The sleep deprivation was everybody was sleep deprived. I don't know about the higher up leaders. I don't know if they were sleep deprived. I'm inclined to think that they weren't. But the workers were, in my estimation, the ones that were sleep deprived, and they were just that. They were workers. And anyway, so this was back in the 70s, late 70s, and I was making probably between $60 and $100 a day. So you think there's a team of us of 6 or 7 people, and we're all making at least that much. Some people are making $200, $150 a day. So you think about how much money. And once a year, they let you go shopping. They give you $50 to buy clothes. Now, mind you, they are providing your housing, they're providing your transportation, they're providing your food.
But the wonderful thing is, it was when they deprived you too much that you started to realize it was wrong. Right. That inside of you, something said you had value.
Right.
So you were really very strong to start figuring that out.
I was traveling, and I had an opportunity to visit, to meet Reverend Moon, and when I met him, I was very disappointed, because they were teaching that he was the Messiah, he was the second coming of Jesus, and I was like, there's no way, and I became disillusioned. And so here I was, stuck on the East Coast. I was from California. Here I am stuck on the East Coast with no money, no family, and I have no way to get away. There was no way I could have got away.
In that moment of meeting him, your own intellect told you something that you saw with your eyes. Your eyes revealed to you an emotional truth.
Right.
What was it?
I wasn't raised in a Christian home, but I had I had a preconceived idea of who Jesus would be and what he would look like. And when I saw this man, he did not fulfill any of those ideas of how I saw Jesus. And something in my mind said, if he's Jesus, I am very disappointed.
Did he fill you with admiration?
No.
Did he fill you with love?
No.
Did he fill you with wisdom?
No.
And your eyes beheld that?
Yes. I felt more from the people that I was working with. I felt more connection with them than I did with him. So it's like he was basking in the sun of his own self. And that's it. He was just there to be loved and adored, and I didn't want to have anything to do with that. I tried to feel like he's someone that I could adore or worship, but I just could never feel it. And then that's when it began unraveling. The whole thing just began unraveling, and it took a while, because it took a while for me to have the courage to do what needed to be done to escape.
How did you escape?
So I was out fundraising one day, and I was fundraising to this couple in their apartment building, and it was weird. I had like an out-of-body experience, and I was like, my vision was like, they looked like they were like getting far away from me, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I just woke up. It's like I woke up, and I was like, what am I doing? I had $13 on me. I was in Virginia. So I'm from California. I had $13 on me, the clothes on my back. I went to a gas station, got a road map, and started hitchhiking. And I knew, about 2 months before this happened, when I left, because I couldn't tell anybody I was leaving. I just had to leave, because if I told them, they would do whatever they had to do to keep me there, right? And so I realized I had to leave on my own. So I had $13. I was hitchhiking, and 2 months before this happened, I had met this guy, and we just struck up a conversation. And instead of fundraising, I talked to him for like 3 or 4 hours, and I found out where he lived and what his name was. And he lived in Virginia. So I hitchhiked to his house. I found out where he lived. I hitchhiked to his house, and his parents were there. He lived with his parents. And they said, well, he was at a concert. So the concert was in another state. So I hitchhiked to that other state. And this concert was one of these kind where it's like it lasts for 3 days and you camp out. The first day I couldn't find him. So here I am. I'm all alone. I don't know anybody, and it's like getting nighttime, and I have nowhere to sleep. I don't even have a blanket. And these teenagers came up to me and they go, "Are you alone? Do you need a place to stay?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "We can stay in our car. We can sleep in our car." And in the morning, they made breakfast for me and everything. So, and then I felt like that was, I really felt loved then.
Yes.
Yeah. And because these perfect strangers, and they were teenagers, and you don't expect that of teenagers. So the next day was the second day of the concert, and I walked all around, and I found him. So the day that I found him, the Unification Church was fundraising at that concert. And there was a girl that I had met in California in the Unification Church, and she was there. And she goes, "Judy, what are you doing here?" And I go, "My name's not Judy, I don't know you." I had to pretend, because I still had that
fear.
I still had, well, not just fear, but I had that vulnerability still. And I'm like, no, I just have to, even though I really like this girl,
yeah,
I had to just say, no, I don't know you, I'm not part of you, nothing. And she goes, "Well, what's your name?" And I used my middle name. I said, "My name's Lynn," which is my middle name. And she goes, "Well, do you have a twin?" I go, "No." She goes, I know you're Judy." I said, "I'm not." I said, "And you need to leave me alone."
Yeah.
But I had to. It was like a self-preservation. I went to my friend's house, and I stayed there, and I called my dad, and I told him where I was, and he got all the plane arrangements together, and he flew me home. And I was home for about a month or two, and one of the people from the church comes over to the house, and she goes, I go, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be part of your group. Oh, Judy, you know, trying the love bomb thing again. And I wasn't having any of it. So she goes, well, can I come in and talk to you? And I go, yeah, you can come and talk to me, but I'm busy. I'm cleaning the house. And so she came in and she wouldn't leave. And I said, if you don't leave, I'm going to call the police. Oh, you wouldn't do that. I go, I wouldn't? Watch me. And I walked over to the phone and I started dialing. She left. And she wrote me letters after, a few letters after that, but I never responded, and that was the end of them. When I was fundraising, there was always a team leader that drove us around and picked us up. He was in charge of the money and whatever else he did. I don't know what he did, but he was our leader. And one time I had a disagreement with one of the leaders, and we were parked out in the country, and he demanded that I get out of the van. And I'm someplace I don't know where I'm at, and he demanded that I get out of the van. He told me that the direction of the city, and it's not that he pushed me out of the van, but he was big and he was like coming towards me. He got out of his seat and I was scared, so I got out of the van and I had to walk about 7 or 8 miles before I got to a town. And then he picked me up. I guess he wanted to teach me a lesson.
Wow. So the lesson was you couldn't disagree with him. It was blind obedience.
Right.
Which is typical of cults.
Right. One of the reasons I stayed in the group too is, you might find this humor, there was a lot of cute guys. And I was getting attention from all these cute guys. So, you know, and I enjoyed that. But once I started fundraising, if you even touched another guy, even by accident, you were just reprimanded. You weren't slapped, but you were just, you know, scolded in front of everybody. You don't do that. You don't touch the opposite sex. There was guys that I liked, and so I would touch them. You know, it's an affectionate thing. You know, and I'm a touching person. There was one guy that I did that, and he, in front of everybody, Judy's touching me. I never did that again.
Now, let's not get you distracted. You may not work as hard.
Exactly. I think that's it. You were discouraged from having any physical contact with people of the opposite sex. But, you know, of course you could have contact with other women because, you know, to them nothing could happen. You weren't allowed to be attracted to someone and act on that attraction. You just had to suppress it. And when the Reverend Moon, every once in a while, he would get these couples together, and there would be thousands of couples, and he would marry them, and he picked your mate. There are all these couples that he married. Sometimes it was 10,000 couples he married all at once. He picked their mate. So
that's so sad. Where did this happen?
The weddings?
Yeah.
I remember one was at Madison Square Garden. And that's the really big one that I remember. And I think he did it at Madison Square Garden in New York 2 or 3 times, the mass weddings. He did it at other locations, but that's the only place I know for sure that he did mass weddings.
So these people were legally married to somebody he picked?
Yes.
Whoa.
But I will say that 80%, I read online, 80% of them, those people are still married. They made it work.
So much for arranged marriages. Well, at least they wanted to.
Yeah.
I think wanting to is
right.
Helpful.
A lot of them were interracial marriages. It would be a Caucasian man to an Asian woman. And so, you know, Reverend Moon is Korean. There's a lot of Koreans in his church. There's a lot of Japanese in his church. And I don't know, could be a way to get them citizenship and get them in the country. The book that they had that was their religious book was called The Divine Principle, and basically it taught that Reverend Moon and his wife were our heavenly parents, and that they were going to establish a kingdom where they were going to be head of that kingdom here on earth. And so that's the essence of what they taught. I found it boring. But they do bring a lot of truth from the Bible in with their teachings too. So, but it's like just enough truth it's not all the truth, it's just enough, and they tie it into with other religions and try to make it into something that sounds reasonable.
Was the sense of belonging in itself what was holding the thing together for those that believed?
Yes, and probably too, like I felt an obligation to stay, even though I didn't believe in it, because you don't know how to leave. I mean, you don't know how to go about leaving, because you don't have any money, you don't have any resources. I mean, in my case, I called my dad, and he arranged for me to go home, but other people might not have the option,
Right.
and they might just be stuck in a situation that they don't know how to get themselves out of.
In retrospect, looking back, and you see what happened, what would you tell kids today about cults and how to recognize them?
If you come from a difficult home life, you are vulnerable. Just because of your experience and the stuff that you have at home, going on at home, and you are a vulnerable person, and that's what cults are looking for, people that are vulnerable and easy to manipulate and easy to control. And if you're in a situation like that, you're a prime candidate for these groups. Whether it's a religious cult, whether it's a gang, whether it's prostitution, whatever it is, they take your hurts and they falsely try to make you think that they take your hurts and they falsely try to make you think that your parents and your family didn't care about you, but I do. And if someone comes along and you are in a vulnerable position, I know it's hard because they're loving you and you feel love from them, but you really have to take a serious look at what's going on, and if there's anything about it that you don't feel comfortable with, that you need to run away, or just gather all the strength that you can muster and just run away. You'll be a better person for it.
People that love you add to your life.
Right.
They build you up. They don't deplete you. They victimize you.
Right.
So it's so important that kids understand that. And I want to thank you so much for sharing this wisdom, because this is what they need to know.
Right.
They really need to know. I want to thank you for your courage and telling us all about this. You have any more things that you'd like to add?
The other thing that they do is they take away all your independence. You have no independence. I reached an age where I wanted to drive, and they wouldn't even let me get my driver's license. So basically, you're under complete control. And if you're a teenager and you think it's bad at home, well, you have even less there.